Requesting repairs after the home inspection, approaching it from the buyer's perspective. I'm Craig Power with Power Realty Advisors, serving Greater Boston and the South Shore. This is a tricky topic for buyers in a real estate market where all the leverage is on the seller's side. And as the buyer these days, people feel like, can I even make requests? I'm so at the mercy of the seller. You see all these memes online of listing agents just sleepwalking through an open house and cashing big checks. That's how lopsided the market is. But I'm here to tell you, you absolutely can request repairs or credits after the home inspection. And as a matter of fact, it might be the best leverage you'll have at any point in the transaction. Even in a seller's market like this, I assure you, the owner of the home doesn't want to have to put it back on the market. It doesn't look good to put a house back on the market post-inspection. It doesn't look good optically because a prospective buyer immediately thinks, oh, what's wrong with it, right? You've heard that before. So that is the leverage you have as the buyer. However, a couple caveats. For all we know, the seller has a line down the block of people who want to buy the home, who could jump right in at any time. That's true. That's one. Also, more importantly, often I don't encourage negotiating over ticky-tack stuff, right? We're not trying to put the seller in a corner. We are bargaining in good faith, which is to say we're making reasonable requests for repairs and credits. In an effort to help you along with this, I wanted to break it down into 5 simple tips, 5 simple steps for requesting repairs after the home inspection. These all begin after you've gotten the inspection report and read through it, okay? So tip number 1 is have a plan of action. What makes this a deal for you? What makes this not a deal? Only you can determine that. Post-inspection, you have the option to back out of the deal and get your deposit back. You also have the option to look past any problems and keep the deal as is, absolutely. But if you're watching this video, you're probably somewhere in between. You want the house, but you need to find some middle ground on the money or the repairs to get done. So for step number 1, right, here's what you need to figure out quickly once you read the inspection report. Pause and reflect for a moment. How strong is your stomach for this negotiation, right? Again, only you can decide this. So, your agent will handle the framing. That's what we do. But ask yourself, do you want your agent to come in hard and say, do this or we're walking and risk the deal, right? Or do you want your agent to say, hey, my clients, want the house. However, to make it a fair deal, we want X. Come up with a plan A. This is what we're asking for over here. And a plan B. This is what we will ultimately accept. Tip number 2, prioritize repairs either by cost or urgency. Don't obsess over a little dent or piece of hardware. Your top concern should be either expensive items or important things for day-to-day living, safety issues, right? Fits the bill. I would add to that list items that could really negatively affect your resale value. So examples would be like termite damage. One thing that comes up sometimes, roof at the very end of its lifespan. That's even, a safety issue. So sometimes the seller is very forthright about a home's problems from the very beginning, and these things are all priced in. Now, maybe your inspection report didn't turn up all that stuff. It was more, smaller cosmetic items. You can still try to negotiate over that if you think it'll be productive. Many agents would tell you minor repairs are likely to be turned down, or at minimum, you sort of run the risk of annoying the seller when you want to keep the deal ideally on favorable terms. If you are negotiating for smaller repairs to be done, that's actually a nice segue into tip number 3, which is to figure out, hey, do I want money or do I want repairs to be done? As a side note to that, I'd like to say, really most repair work should be done by a licensed contractor. At this point, I am wary of sellers doing the work themselves. They don't really have an incentive to do an excellent job. They just want to check the box and get through closing and say, hey, all sales are final, right? So for you, the buyer, oftentimes my recommendation is to go back and ask for money rather than ask for repairs. It takes out the risk of poor workmanship. If we do successfully negotiate to get you a few extra dollars, it is often done in the form of a buyer credit toward closing costs, or alternatively, we can agree to lower the purchase price. Tip number 4 is to support your repair request with data such as contractor quotes. Getting a professional opinion, this can help to make your case to the seller. Thankfully, I have a few people I can turn to in these situations. Actually had one fairly recently as the seller's agent, where I got a quote to dispute another quote, right? What I thought to be an irrationally high quote for a deck repair. I think the buyer's agent just called the first name on Angie's list, and some hack showed up and said, "Oh yeah, it's a tear down. Let me build you a new deck sometime." And my guy, I would say an actual professional person, showed up and said, "Yeah, this is one day of work. This is a $900 job." My point is, it helps to defer to an expert on pricing, and I mean an expert. Not the first person to call you back on Angie's list. It helps to make your case. Show the other party your reasoning, and your request isn't based on an arbitrary number, which actually brings us to my favorite tip. Tip number 5, be understanding. Be understanding of the seller's perspective and be understanding of the real estate market circumstances. There's a well-known stereotype in real estate of a client's dad who shows up to the inspection and insists that his daughter, first-time home buyer, is paying $100,000 too much for the house, and thinks the buyer can just make a list of demands for the seller to follow all the time. He bought a house in the 80s, hasn't bought property since, and doesn't understand today's market dynamics. This guy's out there, by the way, all over the place. So don't start by way overestimating the repair costs and throwing out unrealistic demands. Now, if the situation is, like we said earlier, resolve this or we walk, that's totally fine. If that's the plan of action, it is what it is. We'll follow it. But if you want to make headway and for the seller to understand your position as the buyer, you should practice what you preach a little bit. Put yourself in their position as well. This transaction has a bearing on everyone's financial future, so try to keep it business, not personal, even if you are dealing with someone on the other side who is stubborn. We'll do what we can to get you an edge and get the deal back on your terms. Those are my general tips for requesting repairs after the home inspection. Number 1, after you read the report, right, strategize and have a plan of action. Number 2, prioritize repairs by cost and by urgency. Number 3, figure out if you're asking for money or you're asking for repairs. Number 4, support your repair request with data. And number 5, be understanding, aka don't overplay your hand. Thanks for watching. Please follow our social media, send our page to a friend or maybe a family member. I can tell you my goal professionally is not just to be some fella you meet one day, fill out some paperwork, thankless transaction, forget each other ever existed. The goal is actually to be your go-to resource for any real estate needs, your real estate agent, basically. The person you think of when you think of real estate. So, even when you're not making moves for a very long time. You can email me at craig@powerrealtyboston.com. Thank you for watching.